Lexie Natasha tweeted and was just saying a bunch about pride and how proud she was of this team. Have you kind of had similar emotions the last couple of days, and how do you balance that with a very painful ending to the season?
Yeah. What is the Indian River, and why are whispers suddenly circulating that Clark, the biggest name in basketball, is going back to play there? More importantly, what is the huge game-changing announcement from her Indiana Fever teammate Lexie Hull that has been dropped right before the season's intensity ramps up? The internet has been buzzing with confusion. A chaotic storm of speculation fueled by algorithms that reward sensationalism over accuracy. Theories are flying. Fans are trying to connect dots that don't exist. And the entire narrative has been twisted into something unrecognizable. But the truth is far more complex and shocking than a simple team change or a bizarre rumor. It's a story of ambition, of profound sacrifice, and of the silent or brutal battles fought away from the roaring crowds and the glare of the television cameras. It all revolves around one player, whose world, whose entire professional trajectory was just turned completely upside down. The answers aren't where you think they are. And what's really happening inside the Indiana Fever locker room is a high-stakes drama that could either forge a dynasty through fire or tear the entire promising enterprise apart from the inside out. Stick around, because we're about to expose the reality behind the rumors. A reality that the mainstream sports media, in its frantic rush to cover the Clark phenomenon, has almost entirely ignored. The story was never about some mysterious non-existent river. It's about the turbulent, unforgiving waters of professional sports, where one player's meteoric rise means another has to learn to swim in a completely different direction or risk drowning in the powerful, inescapable wake. The real announcement isn't one you hear, it's one you have to see, and it's happening right now in plain sight. The entire frenzy started with a bizarrely worded headline, and like a digital wildfire, the phrase Clark Indian River began to replicate across social media forums, comment sections, and aggregation sites. For a moment, it caused mass confusion, a ripple of genuine panic among a new legion of fans. Was there a new league? A secret off-season team? Was she already leaving the WNBA in a move that would shatter the league's newfound momentum? The reality, of course, and is that Indian River is almost certainly a garbled misinterpretation or a clumsy typo of her actual team, the Indiana Fever. It's a simple mistake, the kind that happens 1,000 times a day online. But this particular error accidentally acted as a smokey-ox screen, obscuring a much deeper, more compelling story. While the world was distracted by a phantom team, they were missing the seismic shift happening right under their noses within the very real Indiana Fever. The focus should never have been on a non-existent place. It should have been on the existing players of the Fever and specifically on Lexie Hull. Before Clark was even a thought for Indiana, before her name was synonymous with sold-out arenas, Hull was a foundational piece of their rebuilding plan. She was a player with a championship pedigree and a top draft pick who was fighting tooth and nail to establish herself and her team in a tough league. Now, with the arrival of a generational talent, her entire career has been fundamentally and irrevocably altered. Her silent professional reaction to this tectonic shift is the huge announcement that nobody is talking about. It wasn't spoken at a press conference or released in a statement. It was demonstrated through a quiet, steely resolve on the court. Her future, the team's future, and the success of the entire Clark experiment in Indiana now hangs in a delicate balance. A balance that was set in motion the exact second Clark's name was called on draft night. To truly understand the gravity and the personal stakes of the situation for Lexie Hull, you have to rewind and understand who she was before the Clark tsunami hit the shores of Indiana. She wasn't just another player on the roster. She was a bona fide star in her own right, forged in the crucible of elite collegiate competition. Alongside her twin sister Lacey, Lexie Hull was a force of nature at Stanford University, a program that stands as the pinnacle of academic and athletic excellence. At a place like Stanford, you don't just play basketball. You are expected to be a scholar of the game. To win with intelligence as much as with talent. She wasn't just a participant in this system. She was a leader, a living embodiment of its principles. In 2021, she was an indispensable part of the team that clawed its way to an NCAA national championship, a feat that cements a player's legacy in basketball history forever. See, this experience imbued her with a knowledge that many players never get. She knows what it takes to win when everything is on the line under the brightest lights against the best competition. So when the Indiana Fever drafted her with the 6th overall pick in the 2022 WNBA draft, it was a massive statement of intent. A pick that high isn't a gamble. It's an investment. She was seen as a key piece of their future. A sharpshooting 3-and-D guard with a high basketball IQ and a relentless non-stop motor. For 2 seasons, she battled in the trenches of a rebuilding team, developing her game, earning her minutes, and carving out a significant role for herself on a team desperate for an identity and a winning culture. She was on the upward trajectory that every professional athlete dreams of, building her career brick by brick and earning the deep respect of her teammates and coaches. Then, in the span of a single evening, the entire architectural blueprint for her future was ripped to shreds and redrawn by a force far beyond her control. The arrival of Caitlinclark in Indianapolis wasn't just a new player joining the team. It was a cultural phenomenon colliding with a basketball franchise. The Clark effect is a term that barely does justice to the scale of the transformation. It was a tsunami of media attention, ticket sales, merchandise revenue, and public expectation unlike anything the WNBA or perhaps any women's professional sports league had ever witnessed. It was a complete paradigm shift. Arenas that once had swaths of empty seats were suddenly selling out in minutes, with ticket prices on the secondary market reaching astronomical levels. Television ratings for Fever games didn't just climb, they shattered previous records, bringing millions of new eyeballs to the league. The issue of charter flights, a major point of contention and a symbol of the league's financial struggles for years, was suddenly resolved for the team, a clear signal of the new economic reality. Clark was more than a player. She was an economic engine, a one-woman stimulus package for the entire WNBA. But with all that positive attention, with all that money and fame, came a crushing, suffocating pressure that enveloped the entire organization. Every single game, from a meaningless preseason matchup to a midweek regular season contest, became a national event. Every win was magnified. Every loss was treated as a catastrophe. And every single play was dissected on major sports network. For the existing players like Lexie Hull, life changed overnight in a way that is difficult to comprehend. They went from being professional athletes quietly honing their craft for a rebuilding team to being cast members in the Caitlinclark show. Their roles, their shots, their offensive and defensive responsibilities, their entire purpose on the court had to be re-evaluated and re-entered around the new sun in their solar system. The game plan no longer started with a balanced team concept. It started and ended with finding ways to maximize the potential of their new superstar rookie. This is a psychologically brutal adjustment for any elite competitor to make, and it happened almost instantaneously with absolutely no time to prepare for the shock wave that was about to hit them. This is where we find the real huge announcement, the one that truly matters for the future of the Indiana Fever. It wasn't a public statement, a press release, or a dramatic tweet. It was a silent, internal, and career-defining decision that Lexie Hull had to make in the face of this new reality. The announcement was the death of her old role and the birth of a new, vastly different one. She had to come to terms with the stark probability that her individual path to stardom in Indiana was now likely closed. The road permanently blocked by a phenomenon. The shots she used to take, the ones she worked her whole life to perfect, were now Caitlinclark's shot. Well, the plays that were once drawn up on the whiteboard for her were now designed exclusively to get Clark an open look. Her announcement then was a pivot, a forced evolution from a primary scoring option and a future cornerstone to a gritty essential role player. Her new job description became crystal clear. Play suffocating. Lock down defense on the other team's best perimeter player. Sprint to the corner to create spacing. And be ready to hit the occasional open three-pointer when the entire defense inevitably collapses on Clark. It is the very definition of doing all the dirty work that doesn't show up in the box score or get you a flashy endorsement deal. This is an ego-swallowing, career-altering shift that requires an immense amount of mental fortitude. Many players in her position would crumble under this reality. Either they would subtly or overtly complain to the media, quietly demand a trade through their agent, or let their resentment manifest in their body language and effort on the court. But Hull's announcement was one of quiet acceptance and radical adaptation. She was choosing to redefine her value to the team to become the exact type of player that a high-volume ball-dominant superstar like Caitlin Clark desperately needs beside her to win championship. It's a thankless, unglamorous job, but in the grand scheme of a dynasty, it might just be the most important one on the entire team. The on-court evidence of this new dynamic is impossible to miss if you know what you're looking for. If you watch beyond the ball, the rest of the WNBA has not rolled out the red carpet for Caitlin Clark. In fact, it's been the exact opposite. How she has been met with a level of raw physicality that has shocked casual fans and ignited debates across the sports world. She's been pushed, shoved, body-checked, and hit with flagrant fouls as veteran players protective of their league and their own status try to deliver a welcome to the league message with their elbows and shoulders. In these moments of intense, often ugly conflict, you can see Lexie Hull's new role crystallize in high definition. While she may not be the one escalating confrontations, her presence as a steady, defensively minded player becomes a crucial buffer. She is often tasked with guarding the very players who are trying to rough Clark up, serving as a subtle but firm line of defense. But it's more than just being a bodyguard. It's about developing an unspoken chemistry. For every hard foul Clark takes, there are also dozens of plays where her incredible gravity on the court, her ability to draw defenders to her like moths to a flame, creates wide-open opportunities for her teammates. Defenses are so terrified of Clark getting an open look that they often leave players like Lexie Hull completely unguarded on the perimeter as a calculated risk. We've already seen numerous examples of this exact scenario playing out. Clark drives into the lane, draws 3 defenders into the paint, and at the last second whips a pass out to a waiting Lexie Hull in the corner, who calmly and professionally knocks down a three-pointer that silences the opposing crowd. This is their new partnership, but it's a symbiotic relationship where Hull's success and her very value on offense are now directly tied to her ability to capitalize on the chaos that Clark creates. It is a delicate, intricate dance they are still learning, and their ability to perfect these steps to build that nonverbal trust will ultimately determine the team's offensive fate. But what about the things we can't see on the court? What about the whispers coming from behind the closed doors of the locker room? The most sacred and secretive space in all of professional sport. The WNBA is a league of fierce, proud competitors. And the narrative that Caitlin Clark is receiving special treatment, the so-called princess treatment, has been a source of significant and palpable tension. From the charter flights that were granted to her team first to the multi-million-dollar endorsement deals that dwarf those of established veterans and the unprecedented wall-to-wall media coverage. Some veterans across the league have openly and pointedly questioned the fairness of it all. This creates a deeply complicated, emotionally charged environment within the Indiana Fever's own locker room. One has to wonder how players who have been grinding in this league for years fighting for every scrap of recognition, for every dollar, for every column inch of media coverage truly feel about a rookie who through no fault of her own has completely overshadowed everyone and everything. Is there unspoken resentment when the cameras all flock to one locker? Is there jealousy bubbling beneath the surface when one player's name is all that's ever mentioned on sports shows? And this is where a player like Lexie Hull becomes more than just a defender or a shooter. She becomes a vital barometer for the team's soul. Her attitude, her unwavering professionalism, her public and private willingness to embrace a new role sets the tone for everyone else on the roster. If a player with her background, a national champion, and a top-6 draft pick can swallow her pride and accept this new reality for the good of the team, it sends a powerful, undeniable message to everyone else. Her leadership in this delicate, potentially explosive situation is the invisible glue, the silent force that could hold this entire ambitious project together or allow it to fracture under the immense external and internal pressure. In this chaotic, high-pressure environment, a veritable circus of expectations and scrutiny, Lexie Hull possesses a secret weapon, an intangible quality that almost no one else on that roster has. She has already been to the mountaintop. Her experience winning a national championship at Stanford is not just a line on her basketball resume. It's a deep-seated cellular-level understanding of what it takes to navigate the complex egos and intense demands of a talented team. True championship teams are never about one person, no matter how brilliant they are. They are about stars learning to coexist with role players, about individuals sacrificing personal glory and statistics for the collective good. Hull has lived this. She understands the importance of chemistry, of trusting the system, of communicating through adversity, and of doing the countless little things that don't make the highlight reel, but that ultimately lead to big wins. While Caitlin Clark is undeniably a generational offensive talent, she is still learning what it takes to win at the professional level. The WNBA is a different beast populated by women who are stronger, faster, and smarter than the opponents she faced in college. Her talent alone will not be enough to win a title. She needs a support system of tough, intelligent, and selfless players around her to handle the aspects of the game she can't. Lexie Hull is the living embodiment of that support system. Her championship DNA, her quiet resilience in the face of a career upheaval, and her defensive tenacity are the exact ingredients needed to balance the flash, the spectacle. The unavoidable defensive liabilities of Caitlin Clark. She may not be the star of the show anymore, but she might just be the most important piece of the championship puzzle they are trying to assemble in Indiana. She is the steady hand in the storm. So in the end, the sensational mystery of the Indian River was nothing more than a ghost, a digital mirage that served as a distraction from the real high-stakes human drama playing out in the heart of Indiana. Caitlin Clark isn't going